Okay, let's start with an introduction. Can you share with us who you are and just give us a bit about your background growing up and what brought you into the Army?
So I'm Sebastian Pailliotet. I joined the Army before my senior year. Well, I signed the contract, then I had to go through my senior year, and then I went to basic training basically a month after I graduated. I come from a marine town, two marine towns, Oceanside and Yuma, Arizona, Oceanside, California, and Yuma. And I was getting in a lot of trouble in high school. Like I was being investigated for like grand theft auto and stuff. And I got a call from Sergeant Romero, and I kind of started freaking out. And then he said, of the U.S. Army. And I had that meeting. Stop, Penny. Sorry, my dog's messing with me. And after that, I scored really high on my ASVAB. I think I was in like the high 80s, low 90s. And so I really could have picked whatever I wanted. I wanted to fight though, like I remember 9/11, we watched it in school. And I had a lot of friends' dads who were, either SEALs or just Marine infantry. And so I kind of grew up around those type of people. And so I was going to choose infantry. And then my recruiter gave me, the same spiel that every combat engineer recruiter does. You just infantry with demo. And so I ended up going with that. And I kind of thought about engineering later on. So I was like, oh, combat engineer, that sounds cool. So that's what I ended up doing. I went to basic training July 1st, 2009. I got to Fort Leonard Wood. That's when it started for me. It was pretty easy. Like, I mean, it was hard, like basic training is for everybody, but I kind of knew I was messing up in life, and I was very cognizant of that. But I came from a rough family, rough childhood, and I just wanted to get away. And me messing up as a kid, that was normal. And I knew I was acting out, and I knew just when I got away and when I went to the military that I could just change things. And so I got to basic training. I did really well. It was like I kind of flipped a switch. I went from being a dirt bag to being all about it. I bought in really quick. And I ended up having the company high PT score there. I think it was like on the extended scale, it was like a 330 something like that. And then after that, I went to Fort Lewis, Joint Base Lewis McChord. I got there October 16th, 2009. Yeah, October 16th, 2009. I've been with 3rd Platoon my whole career with 22nd. I went straight to 22nd ECC. Everybody had gotten back from Iraq a few months prior. Our company was basically stood up with how early did you get there? You got there pretty quick, right?
Yeah, I think around the same time actually, because I stood the company up, so we were like
But if you remember, we were like 80% of us were straight out of basic training from my cycle and then the cycle before. And so I went to 3rd Platoon, and I stayed there my entire time. Our first platoon sergeant was Staff Sergeant Bradley, and then we had Sergeant First Class Altoff, and then Staff Sergeant Malalu. He kind of filled in for a little bit. Then we got Staff Sergeant Simcoe, who ended up taking over as my squad leader. And then eventually he got promoted to E7, and he became my platoon sergeant probably about 6 months or so, maybe a year before we deployed. I think it was about 6 months, because when I went to Ioka with him, it was myself, Staff Sergeant at the time, Simcoe, and then Sergeant Hallberg at the time. And so we went from 3rd Platoon. One of the other lieutenants went. I don't remember who, but I went to Ioka as a as a private first class, which I had to get a waiver. I don't know who signed off on it, but Simcoe said it was somebody really high, like stars high. And so went there. I fell in love with demo, throughout our time training, but like I really fell in love with demo there. And I ended up getting honor grad at that school. And as far as I know, I was the youngest and lowest ranking honor grad that they had ever had. I had a 100% GPA, and then Hallberg had a 99% GPA. So he was pretty pissed because he was my team leader at the time. But yeah. So then after that, we were ramping up for deployment. I did that school probably about 6 months before we deployed. And so I left as advon for our deployment because I had to go get BIP, blast in place certified for the theater of Afghanistan. So I left for advon and got there about 2 weeks earlier than everybody. I did that little 2-week course in Kandahar Airfield. Right after that, the rest of the unit came, and I think like 2 or 3 days later, we were headed out to Fab Pasab, where our base was. Initially, I was supposed to be our demo guy, and this is that story I was telling you about. And so when we were running skeleton crews with the unit we were placing, I can't remember the National Guard unit that we replaced, but Simcoe, myself, and I think it was Staff Sergeant Kukuro. It might have been somebody else, but I know Simcoe and myself, we went out with that platoon to kind of learn the AO with them. And Simcoe had me up on the gun because he wanted me to have, good visibility of everything. And then eventually they started phasing out, and we started bringing more of our platoon in and that transition in. And he kept me up on the gun. And he kept telling me like, oh, I just want you to make sure you have a lay of the land and everything. And then so finally we had phased out with that platoon and with that company in general. And Sergeant Simcoe, he kept me up on the gun, and he wanted me to be his gunner. And I remember I was pissed. Like I was fucking mad. And like I'd always, we have the radios, you all hear it, and I'd always be giving him digging little comments. And here, let me shut my door. And I think it was our first mission. It might have been the first or second mission that we were running alone. We linked up with a EOD. It was probably about 5 kilometers outside of our fob, and we were looking at a grape row, and an explosion went off. I think an explosion went off, but Sergeant Hallberg, he was on the ground with EOD. They were looking at something, and I can't remember if an explosion went off or not, but they started getting gunfire, and so they were running back towards the truck, and I just started lighting up the area. And, that was first or second mission. I already got my first firefight. And like, after that, I was fucking hooked. Like you could not, like, I still wanted to blow stuff up. And I did, I got to use the robot, and I got to interrogate IEDs. But like, after that, like, I didn't want any, like, that was now my pride and joy. And like, before we deployed, I remember I told Belinda Simcoe, Sergeant Simcoe's wife, I told her that I'd keep him safe. And then I had talked to her on the phone when I became officially his gunner, and I told her that I was always going to look out for him. And so that was my goal after that. And so, yeah, that's how Afghanistan started.
That's awesome. When you think about just the deployment as a whole, so you're right out of basic going there, like how did reality meet kind of you know, your preconceived ideas of what it was going to be like?
You know, I thought we had pretty decent training. Um, you know, a thing, and I've actually talked to First Sergeant Gordius about this. You know, like a few years later, you know, because I'm sure you remember First Sergeant Gordius. He was a hard ass. He made our life hell like all the time, and I fucking hated him. Like, you know, me and him, we got into a thing like right when he first came to the unit. I was um I was in somebody's barracks. I won't say who, but I was in somebody's barracks drinking underage, and then I went back to my room to take a phone call with a girl. And so I go in there, and there's this, you know, old guy playing clothes, and my roommate, who's also underage, because they roommate underage people together. He, you know, he's at parade rest, and Gordius looks at me. I don't know who he is at this time, and he's like, "Oh, you look fucking drunk." He's like, "So he must have got the alcohol from you." And so I locked up parade rest. I knew this guy was important. And so he starts, you know, tossing my room looking for alcohol. I don't have anything in there. You know, I know he's not going to find anything. And, you know, I'm a little drunk. I'm a little irritated. He just ruined my whole room. I'm a pretty clean person. And, and I had a bunch of supplements on my dresser. It like basically all I spent money on when I was, you know, a lower enlisted guy was just food and supplements. And I remember he was like, "Oh, you think you're pretty fucking strong, huh?" And like by this time, like I'm irritated, I'm drunk. I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? I do think I'm pretty fucking strong." And he was like, "All right, well, who gave you the alcohol?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I'm too drunk to remember, First Sergeant." Uh, oh yeah, and he had introduced himself. He was like, "I'm your new first sergeant." I was like, "Fuck." And he was like, "Okay, well, you know, come Monday, I'm gonna have something for your ass." And that was Sunday. And so we get there. We show up to the formation, and Captain Lau introduces the Hooligan 22, if you remember that competition. And you know, First Sergeant Gordius, he told all the platoons, "I want you to elect your PT person." And I had already told somebody, I was like, "Hey, I'm hungover, like I can't do this, like just pick somebody else." And you know, he first platoon, who's your two people? Second platoon, who's your two people? And then he got the third platoon, and he was like, "Third platoon, Pailliotet's your guy, pick another." And Simcoe, I remember he was at the front of the formation. He just turned around and glared at me because he knew something happened. Like, this guy already knows my name. And so I did the competition. It was 22 exercises, 22 reps. The goal was under 22 minutes. I think I got it in 18 and some change. The next person closest to me was like 26 or 27 minutes. As far as I knew, like a few years later, I still held the record. But I remember after it, I was bent over throwing up, and First Sergeant Gordius walked up to me, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he's like, "You're pretty fucking strong, aren't you?" And so after that, like, you know, he had always, in a way, he didn't have it out for me because he did like PT people, but like he always kept his eye on me, and you know, he was hard on everybody. And so I remember, like, from the get-go, me and him, we got off on the wrong foot. And he was hard in Afghanistan too. You know, he still was strict. He still was in our ass all the time. But I do remember after about a month or two of being there, I was like, that guy is the reason, like, a lot of us are still alive. Like, just those discipline of little details, you know, like, lack of better term, making your life hell made being in hell pretty easy. Like, we were used to it by that time. Yeah. And like, you know, that I don't know about the other platoons. I think they fared better time duration mission wise than we did, because that like first month or two, I don't think I got more than 4 hours of sleep a night. I remember just out long missions, you know, 18 plus hours. And you know, part of that, we were going slow. We were stopping forever. The other part was we were getting in firefights. You know, then you get sent on QRF. And I remember being exhausted and just miserable. And if you remember, we had artillery next to us too. Whoever thought to put artillery next to the comm engineers has a sick mind. But you know, I remember them shooting that first month, like after a few firefights and just that sleep deprivation and not eating, like I kind of was like, I might not come back from this. You know, I remember thinking that, like, I do remember that first month being a little scared. I talked about with like a few people back home. And eventually when I got over like the lack of sleep, I don't know if it was like you just stopped caring or you're numb or you accepted, but like I stopped worrying about that. But I do distinctly, you know, because I was kind of ashamed of it, to be completely honest. I was like ashamed that like I was feeling like not scared, you know, because like I never shied away from a gunfight, but like I was worried like I might not make it back, you know, because we were getting our ass kicked that first few months. Like we really like, you know, I don't know if you remember, but like the company as a whole, like we were getting close to being skeleton crew and not being able to roll out after all the vehicles got blown up. And man, before that winter time hit, it was just complex ambush after complex ambush. It was like whenever our patrol got hit, there was gunfire, you know, and you know, we always returned. That I will say at the time that was Lieutenant Demona and that was Staff Sergeant Simcoe. I remember Lieutenant Demona sitting all the gunners down with Simcoe and saying, "Hey, you know, we have utmost trust in you. If you do something bad, like you're going to be prosecuted for it. We're going to be prosecuted for it, but we're not going to put handcuffs on you. If you're in fear for your life, and then if you're in fear for some of your platoon's life, you shoot, you know." And I can say that myself and everybody from the platoon, we never shot the first round. You know, we were all shot at first. We never shot the first round. And you know, the politics at the time in 2011, 2012, they handcuffed us. You know, they were really, I remember kind of being lectured for getting in gunfights. Like I remember the term undisciplined being thrown around, you know, that like we are undisciplined and that's why we were getting attacked. And you know, like we you know, we have itchy fingers and that's why we're shooting. And after a few months, we stopped getting hit and they stopped shooting. And I remember that whole kind of thing changing, like, hey, you know, third platoon's fighting back. Like we got to fight back, you know, and that was a big transition for me. Cause I mean, mostly all of my firefights happened pre-December. And then I think like one or two might've happened like up to February, but you know, they stopped shooting after a while. You know, it would just be like maybe a recoilless, but no small arms. Like they weren't sticking around to fight anymore. Yeah.
So that reminds me of, you know, we're always racing against the clock, but in February you talked about that and it reminded me of one of the missions you did, and I'm sure it's not something you need too much refreshment on. Let me get to it. It was a pretty big mission for your platoon. February, let's see. February 15th, you were doing a combined joint task force to show a show of force on Route Summit. There have been a lot of IEDs and recoilless rifle in the area. You had infantry with you. And as you push through, you had dismounts on the ground that were clearing wire, and it looked like Hallberg and Camacho. Hallberg gets shot in his backpack that has C4 in it, and Doris was the gunner that day. Do you remember that one? Is that one you
Yeah.
can talk about and be like what happened that day?
When Doris got injured?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, we were in the back kind of for that. I don't remember that. I don't remember that I even shot that day. I don't think I shot that day, but so Hallberg, Camacho, and I'm sure they had some other dismounts. They started receiving small arm. Hallberg took a round in the backpack. I can't remember if that's the day he got attacked by the dog. Because there was one time he was dismounted, and we had Bonzo, the bomb dog, attached with us, and the dog bit his leg and drug him down. And like, I think the dog was like saving him. It wasn't like aggression. I think he was like bringing him down. But like, I remember Hallberg talking about like, yeah, I had to fight off the dog while we're getting shot at, and but so roll up. I'm in the platoon sergeant's vehicle. We're usually at the end of the convoy. We have the medic in the truck, so we are the Casevac. And we also have the minor battle space on our net. And we got word that Doris he got shot. We hear over the radio, I believe it was Sergeant Briscoe. I think it was Sergeant Briscoe that came over the radio. And he said, I don't remember the call sign at the time, but 3-something golf is shot. And somebody came over the radio, or the medic, Doc Robeson, he's in the back, freaking out, saying like, because Doc was skittish, but damn it, when like something happened, like I wanted nobody else, like he bone skinny, he's 6 foot, 100 pounds soaking wet, but like he knew what to do when it came to medical attention. And Doc snapped into his medic mode, and he's yelling at Simcoe like, find out where he shot, what's this, what's the status, what's the condition. And I remember hearing over the radio like he's shot in the face. And so we get up there, and I'm freaking out. We're trying to find who's shooting. By this time they stopped firing. I want to get in the fight, and then we hear over the radio he's fine. And I remember thinking like, how the hell is he fine? He got shot in the face. Like, and so Camacho, I think Camacho and Sergeant Briscoe, the back doors open up. Robeson hops out. A few minutes later, they come in, stretcher, get him in our vehicle. And I still don't know the extent of the injury, because I'm up on the gun, like I can't get down. And we got troops on the ground. We just received contact. We just had a wounded in action, and we were pretty close to the fob, so we decided that we're just going to Casevac back. We're not even going to call for a medevac. We'll get there way faster. And we turned around and we're hauling ass. And I remember Doc in the back. We're bouncing around. Those MRAP suspension sucks, and he's tending to Doris, and Doc's doing Doc work. And we got the sirens on. We had those like almost police sirens, and we come hauling ass into the fob. And you have to go through your clearing station to clear all your weapons. And so they're trying to flag us down, and I'm basically standing up out of the turret screaming, like we have wounded. So they wave us back, and we haul ass to the we skip our company's aid station, and we go straight to the FOB's aid station right next to the helo pads. And they pulled them out, and I just remember, you see blood all inside the truck. And I didn't see Doc for a while, but what ended up happening was Doris was up on a 240. He was on a shoulder fired 240. Because our platoon didn't really like the butterfly trigger 240s, and so he was up on there. You know, he's got his hand on the buttstock and he's leaning on his hand, and he took a round to the pinky and it ricocheted and hit his it like went in through his cheek and then out through his, I believe the exit wound was a cheek. And so if it would, we got told at least this, if it wouldn't have hit his finger, it was going to be a headshot. That it hit the gun in his finger and it ricocheted. But other than that, it would have been a headshot. And so, you know, Doris ended up losing a finger and getting a pretty sweet scar on the face. But yeah, that happened towards the end of the deployment, last few months.
Was there any other incidents you recall where people from your platoon had to be medevaced out?
Yeah, so I believe it was on Route Victoria. I want to say around somewhere between September and November. I think it was November because like I have two firefights in my mind that like really stand out to me. You know, one was in October, that was on Route Toronto. The other one was on I believe it was Route Victoria. We had just finished clearing the route. We hit the turnaround. We were coming back. You know, we're going through this village and there's this 90-degree, when you're leaving, it's a 90-degree left turn, headed, I believe, north. And, you know, we're the last vehicle. I think we're in a 7-vehicle convoy. The vehicle in front of us, which is a 6 vehicle, has Sergeant Niehaus is a TC. I know he's in there. And you have Specialist Dow as the driver. I think he was a driver. And there was one other person in there with him. I don't remember who, but Niehaus and Dow were in there. And they got hit by recoils. You know, I see I'm facing forward. We have an infantry cop to our rear. So I'm not pulling rear security. You know, I'm not worried about that area. I swivel over to the next area we see. And so I watched the round impact. Whoa. And it impacted on the passenger side behind. It was like behind. They might have had, now I think about it, they might have had a crow gunner. Because I think it happened, it was passenger side, I think behind like the driver's seat, or not the driver's seat, the TC seat. And Dow took shrapnel in the back. And Niehaus, Sergeant Niehaus, he's the TC at the time. And I can tell, you know, like we got no comms from him. I can't remember if the comms went out from the blast or if they were just rattled. And instantly, I see Niehaus's door getting lit up by small arms. And so, you know, Simcoe yells for Specialist Gallagher. He was our driver at the time. Pull up, block in their vehicle, you know, so that we could wedge our vehicle between the fire. And I saw 2 personnel with what I believe was AKs. They're shooting. And so as we're pulling up, I start, you know, laying down fire. And I know Sergeant Simcoe's on the radio because me and Sergeant Briscoe, we talked about it after. He said he heard on the radio me screaming and just rounds coming over the radio. Like, yeah, Pailliotet, you know. And I see Niehaus's door start to open. And it's getting shot at the time. Stop, Penny. And he's like, hey, or no, I see his door get shot. And so now I'm like, shit, like he doesn't know what's going on. Like he's probably rattled. He's probably concussed. And so we get in there, and I just started, just put suppressive fire down. And yeah, I got a guy that day. They're firing from behind grape rows, and I just started lighting it up just with everything we had. And I don't remember if we CASVAC them out or if we medevac them out. But Niehaus ended up getting a concussion. Dow got shrapnel on his back. I remember he was really upset because he just got this brand new assault pack, and they took it away from him because he got blood on it. And, we don't anything with bile stay. And so he was all mad. But he got to stay with the platoon. He just couldn't go on mission until his back healed. Yeah, I might get up just to open the door, but yeah, other than that, we're good.
Okay, and we're already recording. Let's go back and were there any other, from your memory, wounded in action incidents that you remember, were a part of, anything like that?
The out of our platoon.
It does not have to be out of your platoon. Just anything, just any stories you have that are memorable.
Like, I don't know that they're memorable, but I do remember. I know. I can't remember their name. I feel bad.
It happens. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, first platoon, they got hit by like a 700-pounder. The guy who played European football.
Alan?
What's that?
Alan?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, he got hit in the face by the BFT. I think the only injury in there was like he had a broken nose, or he was bleeding from the nose, and which that's a freaking godsend, getting hit by a 700-pounder. And then Staff Sergeant Blevins, or Sergeant Blevins, they got hit by, they were, I believe, the first ones to get hit by recoilless rifle. And I don't remember the kid's name, but that was like within that first month. He lost a finger. He was out. He was out of Afghanistan. Yeah, Private Rear. Yeah, I remember that. I remember Romero, Trevor Romero. He's now a warrant officer, but he was a specialist at the time. And I remember he got hit. I can't remember if he actually got hit or if an explosion went off near him. Not a big deal. He's a gunner. Like, we finished the mission. That was like towards the end of the mission, and we get back in, and he, I walk over I'm walking my gun actually to the tent, and he hops out, and like he almost falls over. And I'm like, "Hey man, you good?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm having a hard time like walking right now." And I was like, "Dude, you're concussed." And so like I kind of helped him. It's not your normal like bleeding injury, but I mean, in light of everything after like the 20 years, what we're learning about, CTE and TBI, and that's an injury. I know there was a few times where where blasts went off like right by me. And like I'm holding on to the gunner's turret that rest of the mission, like that thing's keeping me up. You just kind of like noodly legged. Like when you're a gunner and you're just exposed to all the environments like that percussion for that blast, like it takes its effects. And like I got blown up with I believe it was Ebbett. I know Ebbett was in there, and then I think the driver was Walford, Private Walford, Rashad Walford. And I think I kind of got like knocked out a little bit, because it was like I remember, and it was brief. Because I remember, did you ever get blown up Like
Oh, yeah.
the distinct thing that I remember, you know, because like people ask me like what it like feels or sounds like. And I remember wearing those Bose headsets, and like it kind of just felt like somebody slapped over your ears. Like it didn't sound like an explosion, you know, because they're pretty good. But I remember that happening, and I remember like my face against the glass, and then like it's all dusty, and I was like, ah, shit, like they got us. And you know, the Husky got blown up. The other Husky was in front of it. It couldn't turn around on the route. So we had to go clear for secondaries with the mine roller, and you know, it ended up hitting us. That's all the injuries I remember.
So you talked about concussions, and that might be a good segue into how do you think that experience, not just with the injuries, but just having, you know, survived through that, what kind of takeaways do you have from all that, and how's it impact you today?
You know, like, so it's had its effects. For the first few years, like I really didn't like fireworks, you know. I stayed away from it. You know, I don't know if the deployment as a whole affected the aggression, or if you know, effects of concussions affected my aggression after. But I got over like the fireworks, and like I guess how it affects me now. So I was very thankful for the stuff that we had as far as like technology. And when I decided that I was going to get out of the Army, I wanted to go into engineering, because I wanted to make a difference. You know, I was pretty thankful for things we had. And so I got my degree in electrical engineering at ASU, and then I took a detour. You know, my goal was to work for the military. I ended up working in space electronics for 3 years. I got to work on like the Mars 2020 rover. I did NASA's deep space transponders for General Dynamics. And then I got offered a job actually in my hometown, Yuma. And it was to be a test engineer for electronic warfare. And it was all the counter IED jamming systems. And so I did that, you know, and I was really happy. Like I got to do my part, you know, I got to kind of give back to that 12 Bravo community. And then I miss doing like real engineer work and real design work. So you know, this year I took another position as an electrical engineer for it's aviation weapon systems out here. And then I do a lot of work for like the munitions and weapons branch, which that's like artillery, mortars, things like that. And so I'm around explosions a lot now. And yeah, like a lot. And it took me some adjustment, to be completely honest. It was like those fireworks again. And you know, I got over it because I was like, hey, like I chose this, like, you know, suck it up. Every once in a while though, like if I don't hear a countdown over a radio and a round goes off, like I'm shot the rest of the day. It's like you flash right back, you know. Like one happened a few weeks ago. I won't say like what we were shooting. I don't think I can say that, but it was a rocket. And normally we have a radio outside. I was outside at the time. I was undercover, and the radio wasn't out there, so I couldn't hear the countdown. And just big explosion, and like, you know, Penny, stop. Sorry, Penny, she's fine. And you know, that explosion went off, and you know, I was shaking. I was shaking the rest of the day. Penny, stop it. I was shaking the rest of the day. And you know, like it hit me that whole day. Like, Penny,
That's all good, man. It's what they do. They bark.
stop. Yeah. And so, like that, like I ended up going home early. And like I had to calm down after that. But like I put myself in those situations. That's on me. I choose this career. I want to keep giving back to that military. So yeah, that's for the most part, like that's my day to day. Little things don't bother me anymore. Every once in a while, like if something gets slammed, and if I'm not expecting it, but I can go watch fireworks with my son now, like that's not an issue. I know it's coming.
Okay. And then because of your role as a gunner, you got put in a position to engage with the enemy. And I've been interviewing a lot of people, and it appears you got more kills than anyone else in our company. Can you walk us through memories you have of each one of those incidents and what that means to you? It's not necessarily I don't know if it's a title you do or don't want, but it's there, right?
I guess I'll start with the title thing. I was a lot more proud of it when I was young. Like I turned 20 and 21 in Afghanistan. I left Advon the day before my birthday, and then we got back a few days after my birthday. And after getting in those first firefights, like how I said, I fell in love with being a gunner. Like that was my thing. And we had that bravado, the combat core, like we're gonna go out there in the shit, we're gonna fight. And it's like every firefight we'd come back, and it's like it's a celebration, everybody's high-fiving, like, oh, that's badass, and it's not like we're celebrating like like killing people. We're happy that we saved our friends, and like I said earlier, I've never shot before being shot at. And where I kind of like really, I mean, that route Toronto incident, we were in the middle of the turnaround. We were always getting shot at from there. It was so normal. And most of the convoy got turned around, the trailing vehicle, myself, we were just entering it, and then Private Turner, his Husky got blown up. So now we're in recovery mode, and we start getting ambushed. And then Simcoe, he calls in air support. We get CAS on standby. They come in, fighting stops. They leave to refuel, fighting starts. They come back, fighting stops. And man, this goes on for like probably 3 or 4 hours. Like it was a long time, and by this time, we have the mechanics there with the wrecker, and we're getting irritated because we're getting shot at and we're shooting back. But anytime we get CAS, they're not there. And so, I don't know if Simcoe told you the story, but so they come on the radio, one of the Apache pilots, and they're basically like, hey, like, this keeps happening. Can we have a vehicle draw themselves out? It's like bait, like kind of leave the convoy a little bit, and we'll sit back like a mile or two. And when you guys start receiving contact, we'll come in guns blazing. And so Simcoe, he addressed it to the truck. He said, hey, we don't have to do this, but I don't feel comfortable asking anybody else in the platoon to be that role. So are you guys comfortable with being that role? And I probably had like 4 or 5 firefights at that time. I'm like, fuck yeah, like let's go do it. Let's get the RPG team. And so we go about 100 to 200 meters from the convoy. And like I remember just sitting there, just scanning, and I had 3 RPGs go off instantly. Like I'm getting like rattled to the side, and I start engaging the RPG team, and I get to I believe. And as far as I know, they're watching the footage back at HQ at the talk. And the fucking Apaches never came.
Oh no.
Yeah, they never fucking came. And I remember being so mad. And like the only reason like we probably survived that was the RPG cage. They worked, you know, like, and knowing what I know about ordinances, like I know how it worked. Like those things are really sensitive. They're a shape charge. It had too much standoff. So that spear turned into like a pancake and it just slaps the side of the vehicle. And so then we kind of head back to the convoy because Simcoe's pissed that, you know, we never got cast. You know, we just got sent out there as a decoy, and then, you know, they never came. And then my window shatters. And so I remember yelling, you know, a sniper, what I thought was a sniper. And it wasn't, you know, we're still getting in firefights at that time. And then, you know, it kind of all ends up dying off and they're recovering the vehicle. And down below our vehicle, I don't remember who spotted it, if it was Simcoe when he had boots on ground, or if it was Hallberg, because I know Hallberg was helping recover that Husky. But it started, they said there was a mangled recoilless rifle round. It had hit my window and it didn't detonate. And yeah, that was what I thought was a sniper. You know, because my window shattered. It was loud, but there was no explosion, you know. So it just sounded, you know, I'd had my window shot out before. It sounded like that. And so that was my kind of my real come to Jesus moment where I was like, oh shit, you know, like I should be dead right now. You know, it was a dud. And, you know, after that, like, I'm not a religious person, but, you know, after that, it was like, it just got easier. You know, I'm like, oh, well, I survived that. So I guess it can't get worse than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were more incidents than that though, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was that knee house incident. There was that first one that happened. I believe there was another one when a Doe King got stuck. I had to shoot at some people. There was another one where we were doing our normal RCP, and there was some infantry outposts getting shot at, and we got called. You know, we rolled with 5 gun trucks. And so we came over, you know, because they're calling for QRF, and we're like, hey, you know, we're a couple kilometers away. We can be there in a few minutes. So we roll up, and we light up the tree line. There's another one when we had a reporter with us, and we're getting shot at from some mountains, actually on that same route. I don't remember the route name. It was kind of by Victoria, and you know, we're shooting at the mountains back, and an A-10 actually came through. That was pretty gnarly. But yeah, like I said, like I was a lot more cool with it. Like as a kid, like I don't regret anything. But like, you know, like I do have, I know for sure 4, like 100%. I saw the aftermath, and then probably another 12 to 15 that like we didn't stick around to, like, you know, I didn't fully see it. I know I hit somebody, but you know, you could have wounded him as far as, because I shot the 240. I like the 7.62 personally. So, you know, they might have made it, they might have not. I don't know. But, you know, when I was young, I got my I got the 4 that I know of tattooed on my trigger finger. And you know, now that I'm a father, you know, I kind of dread the day that he sees it and he asks me what it means. You know, not that I regret anything.
Right.
You know, because you know, I was protecting my guys. and they shot first. But it's just that it's that awkward conversation, and it's, you know, like, how will he look at me after that? You know, and like in the fact that like I celebrated it by putting it on my skin, you know. So that's my outlook on it now. You know, I don't celebrate it as much as I used to, being the top guy in the I was told battalion.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I mean, we were the only company really getting in the shit at the time. But yeah, like I said, I'm not regretful of it at all. I just don't talk about it as much anymore.
I gotta ask, are you comfortable showing the tattoo?
Yeah, it's pretty faded now, but it's just tick marks.
Oh, I see. That's probably the way to do it if you're gonna do it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, it could mean anything.
Okay. And then I wanted to bring something up. I was talking with Simcoe, and he brought up this story where you had been in an IED blast and you hop out of the back all pissed off smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, so we got by this time Lieutenant Demona had transitioned out. He had filled his role as a platoon leader, and we got Lieutenant Njoku in, you know, also a stud of an officer. You know, he came in, Demona and Simcoe, they sat him down and they're like, hey, you know, like, the platoon's hot shit. Like, we're getting in firefights. Learn to trust these guys. And I can't ever remember an instance where Njoku, you know, contradicted anybody. So I got nothing but good things to say about him, except, you know, like, Demona was prior enlisted. He was kind of like one of the bros, you know. He smoked, he drank, and then you had Njoku, who's this physical specimen, and you know, he hated tobacco use. And I think he got in a truck one day and it smelled like cigarettes. And then he made a rule, like, you know, if you smoke, like, you're gonna get in trouble. And so then no smoking was allowed in the vehicles. And I got blown up that day. It was the instance where I was telling you I kind of got a little knocked out, and I hop out the back of the truck. I think Evett had the cigarettes. I was like, give me a fucking cigarette. And you know, I'm smoking it, and I hop out the back of the truck, and I'm mad, you know, because Simcoe always told us, like, hey, if this truck doesn't get blown up, I will send you a Christmas card for the rest of your life. Everybody. Yeah. And so I hop out of the truck. I'm mad, you know, because like I've only not been his gunner twice. That was one time, and then there was another time I got hit. And I got out of the truck, and I was like, and I'm smoking, and I'm yelling. I was like, this doesn't fucking count, you know. And and so he told me later, like, Njoku was like, is that a cigarette in his mouth? And he was like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. This instance, it's okay. And then I talked to him after the mission. I was like, hey, do I still get my Christmas card? And he was like, yeah, like, I meant, like, as long as I don't get blown up, like, you all get a Christmas card. And so he stuck to his word. I get a Christmas card from him every single year. Yeah, every year.
That's a cool story. Do you recall when your platoon bought a bunch of blankets and pillows for the A&A? Simcoe had said everybody pitched in $20 for the A&A that was at this checkpoint you all went by. I think was
I think I had left. I got so the last 2 months of our deployment, what was told to me was I was our first battlefield promotion since Korea. So I made my 5, and it might have been the last 3 months.
Wow.
No,
did not
so
know.
I made I made my 5. I didn't have points, so they battlefielded me. And you know, when you get promoted, at minimum you leave the platoon, at minimum, but really they like you to leave the company because you're not with your people, the people that you grew up with. And so they sent me to Leatherneck. And oh yeah, I guess this is a wounded situation. And I was pissed, you know, like I wanted to finish the deployment there, and I was out on mission, and I went to FSC Food as Service, and like I was running their guns for them because they were having issues with discipline and things like that, and so they requested somebody, and somehow I got sent. I was very bitter over it because I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be this hot shit top guy. You guys are gonna, you know, send me out of the company, out of the fight. And I was out on mission, and I was I think I was on the BFT with Simcoe. I was, you know, texting him on the BFT, and I was looking at one of the other platoons, and they were stopped for a long time. And like I had a bad feeling. I had a really, really bad feeling. And so I'm messaging Simcoe. I'm like, what's going on? And he was like, hey, like I got to talk to you later. And it was the day that Staff Sergeant Pailliotet died. And we got to the base that we were resupplying, and I remember my lieutenant in that company. He came up to me and he was like, hey, you know, I just got a message, you know, somebody in your last company, they just died. And he told me who. And like I remember I didn't break down there, but I was mad. I was so fucking mad. Because McCollum, he you know, there's another wounded. He had lost his legs. We had Pailliotet go, and like he's one of the best human beings I've ever met in my life, hands down. And yeah, we got back to Leatherneck, and that's where our battalion headquarters was. And I remember going into battalion and just yelling, and I was like, fucking send me back. Like, they need NCOs, send me back. Like, you know, what am I doing here? Like, people are dying, and I'm not there. Like, he wasn't in my platoon, but like I just, you know, I had carried that burden. Like, I wasn't there to protect somebody. And First Sergeant Gordius at the time, you know, he had been relieved, and so he was up at battalion, and so he had to kind of drag me out of there. He was like, hey, like, you know, because I'm pretty irate, like, and he had to kind of get me out of there and calm me down. And he was like, hey, I get it, you know. And yeah, you know, that's, so I wasn't there for the blanket scenario that happened after I had left.
Okay. And that's okay. And then, you know, something I never got a lot of insight into, and maybe you would know, do you know the circumstances? It's been kind of tight-lipped about why Gordius had to go. I mean, I don't think he had to go. I think somebody else had to leave and they put him in the 22nd. Do you have any insight what happened?
Yeah, so it was First Sergeant Patterson, I believe, was the First Sergeant before. And you know, we just, like, the company had we were young, you know, so there's obstacles with that. But the company had a little bit of a reputation in the battalion for being undisciplined. You know, you have First Sergeant Patterson. He was a tough guy, but he, you know, I don't want to speak ill on anybody, you know, because I really liked him as First Sergeant. But I guess when you're a sergeant major and you know, maybe a higher officer, they would look at, like, his relationship with us is a little bit of what's it called, fraternization. There you go. And then I believe kind of the same thing with Captain Burnett. There was a little bit of that image. And then this is speculation, you know, so maybe you don't want to put this to print unless you hear it from somebody else. But I think there was a alcohol incident or something like that. And the company was just kind of, we weren't doing too well on the discipline side of things. And so I believe that's why Gordius came in. But, you know, I'm not 100%.
I'm So I'm talking the second half of the deployment when Gordy's had the lead.
Oh. I thought his time was up.
It might have been. I have no idea. I've never got
Yeah,
an answer on
I'm
that.
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure his first sergeant. Yeah, I don't remember the guy who replaced him. I know I didn't like him because he wouldn't let me stay, I think Gordia said he had sent a message that like I wanted to come back, and he didn't approve it for whatever reason. So I left probably about a week after. So yeah, so I left. I wasn't around very long, and so I had no relationship with the guy. But I think Gordius's time was up because he was the first sergeant for a good amount of time, and I think they only have about a year.
Okay,
So,
all that makes sense. And I would agree before Gordius got there, we were definitely an unruly bunch. And
yeah.
there was spice incidents and alcohol. Yeah, it was like we were a train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, I had several alcohol incidents. Like it was happening a lot. You probably don't put this in, but like Bird was in house arrest in the military. I used to always give him shit for that because I would have to go get his pizza because his door was out of the range from the CQ desk, so he like couldn't go get his pizza because. But yeah, like we were getting in trouble a lot.
Yeah, I remember those days. And then I just want to take a moment. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you being open with everything. And you always had a great reputation in the company. And again, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, man. We'll keep in touch. I got your number now.
Okay.